Good evening. This is Adam. And wherever you are right now, maybe in your bedroom, the lights dim, just the glow of your phone screen, or sitting at a small desk with a cup of coffee going cold, or maybe lying on the couch, listening in the quiet of your own thoughts. I'm glad you're here. This is our space, a place where the world slows down, where you can set down the weight you've been carrying and just listen. I know life doesn't always give us the right words at the right time. Some stories never make it into conversations. They stay locked away, not because they don't matter, but because they matter too much. And saying them out loud feels impossible. Tonight's letter is one of those stories. It's from a daughter writing to her mother, not with anger, not with blame, but with a quiet kind of love, and a heartbreak she could no longer hide. For years, she fought a battle no one could see. She wore a smile in public. She kept her grades up. She even laughed at the right moments, so no one would ask. And she thought, if she could just be strong enough, she could make it through. But strength isn't infinite. And sometimes the silence becomes too heavy to carry alone. Tonight, you will hear her final words. A letter to the woman she loved most in this world. Her mother. The letter she wrote before she decided to disappear. If you're ready, let's turn the page together and listen. Mum, if you're reading this, I guess it means I couldn't stay. I want you to know this isn't your fault. You didn't miss something or fail me or love me any less. You were my safe place, the one person who never made me feel like I had to be anything other than myself. But that's exactly why I could never tell you how bad it was. Every morning, I'd walk through the school gates and feel my chest tighten. It wasn't the classes or the homework, it was the stares, the whispers that weren't quiet enough, the laughter that felt sharper than knives. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Kids being kids. But kids being kids can make you feel like you're worth less than nothing if it happens every single day. And it did, Mum. Every single day. I'd sit in the cafeteria at a table that kept shrinking, not because the table moved, but because the people around it disappeared. One by one, my friends found new places to sit, or maybe they just didn't want to be seen with me anymore. They started calling me names, nothing dramatic at first, but little words that stuck to me like burrs that I couldn't shake off. It's strange how the smallest words can echo the loudest when you're alone at night. Then came the pictures. Someone took a photo of me in class. Mid-blink, mid-word, and by the end of the day, it was everywhere, with captions that made me feel like I wasn't even human. You didn't know, Mum, because I made sure you didn't. I didn't want you to see me like that. I wanted to protect you from my pain. even if it meant drowning in it alone. It didn't stop in the hallways. It followed me home on my phone screen. I'd post a picture, just something simple like the sky or my shoes, and within minutes, there'd be comments. Not about the photo, about me. They'd twist my words, tag each other, laugh in ways that I could hear, even without sound. I started deleting everything. Then, I stopped posting altogether. But even when I was silent, they found ways to remind me I didn't belong. Anonymous messages, fake accounts, little pings in the night that felt like someone tapping on my window just to tell me I wasn't safe. And all the while, Mom, you thought I was just tired from school. I let you believe that, because the truth felt too heavy to hand to you. The worst part wasn't the words. It was how they made me feel about myself. I started believing them. I looked in the mirror and didn't see your daughter anymore. I saw what they said I was. Ugly, weird, pathetic. I stopped wearing my favorite clothes, stopped raising my hand in class. I learned how to make myself smaller, quieter, so maybe they'd forget I was there. But they never forgot. If anything, my silence made it easier for them, like I was a shadow they could throw stones at, without consequence. And every day, I told myself I could handle it, until one day, I couldn't. It was a Thursday. I remember because it was raining and my hair was damp when I walked into first period. I sat down, trying not to drip water onto my notebook, and that's when I heard it, a whisper from the back of the room, then a giggle, then the unmistakable sound of my name, wrapped in a word that made my stomach turn. I didn't look up, but the teacher did, and when she glanced around, the room was quiet again. No one ever said it in front of adults, not loud enough for them to notice. By lunch, there was a new rumor, something I'd never said, something I'd never done, but it spread faster than I could breathe, and the more I denied it, the more they smirked like my protests were part of the joke. That night, I opened my locker to grab my books, and a folded piece of paper slipped out. At first, I thought it was from you, Mum, a little note you'd sneak into my bag sometimes, but when I opened it, the handwriting was messy, and the words were cruel. They told me to just disappear, to do everyone a favor. And the last line, I can still see it in my mind. It said, "No one would even notice if you were gone." I stared at that piece of paper for a long time, not because I believed it, but because a small part of me wondered if they were right. And that's when something inside me began to crack. After that note, I started walking with my head down all the time. Not because I was shy, but because I didn't want to see who was laughing. Even in the cafeteria, I'd sit at the farthest table from everyone else, the one by the vending machines where the hum was loud enough to cover the sound of my thoughts. Sometimes I'd feel eyes on me, and when I looked up, they'd quickly turn away. Other times they didn't bother hiding it. They'd hold up their phones, like they were taking pictures, or maybe recording. I never asked. I didn't want to know. I started skipping lunch, telling you I wasn't hungry, but really, I just didn't want to give them another chance. The worst days were the ones when nothing obvious happened. No cruel notes, no whispers I could catch. Just silence. The kind that made me wonder if they were planning something, if they were waiting for the right moment to humiliate me again. That's the thing about bullying, Mom. It doesn't have to be loud to hurt. Sometimes it's in the quiet, when you're left alone with the fear of what's next. I'd sit in class, pretending to take notes, but my eyes would keep flicking to the door, half of me hoping no one would walk in with a new reason to target me, and the other half knowing they would, eventually. At home, I tried to hide it. I'd drop my bag by the door, head straight to my room, and close the door before you could ask about my day. You'd knock sometimes, offering snacks or asking if I wanted to watch something with you, and I'd smile, a fake one, and say, maybe later. but later never came. I didn't want you to see the way my hands shook when I did my homework, or how I kept checking my phone, terrified of what new messages might be waiting. You thought I was just tired from school, but the truth is, I was tired from pretending. It's strange, Mom, how I could be in the same room as you and still feel miles away. Some nights, I'd hear you laughing at something on TV, and I'd press my ear against the wall just to feel close to that sound. I wanted to tell you everything, but I didn't know where to start. How do you explain to someone that you're drowning when you're still breathing? I kept thinking, if I told you, you'd look at me differently, like I was fragile, like I was broken. And I didn't want to be your burden. I started sleeping more, not because I was tired, but because it was the only time I could escape my head. On weekends, I'd stay in bed until noon. You'd knock, asking if I wanted breakfast. I'd mumble something about catching up on rest, and you believed me. The truth was, I didn't want to face another day of wondering what they'd do to me next. I didn't want to see the notifications on my phone. Sleep was my way of pressing pause on everything. But every time I woke up, it was still there, waiting. Then came the nights I couldn't sleep at all. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, feeling my chest get tighter with every passing hour. It's like my brain wouldn't stop replaying everything. The notes, the whispers, the stares. I started scrolling through social media, looking at pictures of people smiling, laughing, and wondering how they made it look so easy. That's when the thoughts started creeping in. Not just about how much it hurt, but about how I could make it stop. And once those thoughts found me, Mom, they didn't leave. One night, I found myself in the bathroom just staring at the cabinet under the sink. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, at least that's what I told myself. But my eyes kept landing on the bottles. Painkillers from when you hurt your back, cold medicine, things that could make me stop feeling. I didn't touch them that night, but knowing they were there felt like having an exit sign glowing in the corner of my mind. After that, I started noticing other signs. The high bridge on my walk to school, the train tracks we crossed during field trips. They weren't just places anymore, they became possibilities. And that scared me, Mum, because a part of me felt relieved to have them. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not you, because once you say those thoughts out loud, you can't take them back. And I wasn't ready for you to know how far I'd fallen. It was a Friday. The kind of day everyone else was counting down to. Except me. I was at my locker when I felt something hit the back of my legs. A phone. Someone was recording. Before I could even turn around, I heard the laughter, sharp, cold, like glass breaking inside my chest. They had printed out one of my old yearbook photos, doodled on my face, and taped it to my locker with the words, "Most pathetic," in red marker. Everyone passing by stopped to look. Some took pictures, some whispered. No one said a word to me. I ripped the paper down, but by then it was too late. It had already been posted online. That night, my phone lit up with notifications, tags, comments, messages I didn't want to open. Every beep felt like another stone added to the weight I was already carrying. And then, one message stood out. It was just 4 words. Why don't you quit? I don't think they meant quit school, Mom. I think they meant quit everything. And for the first time, I didn't know if I had the strength to ignore it. After that weekend, something shifted. I stopped arguing with myself about whether I could keep going. Instead, I started thinking about how I would leave, quietly. No scene, no note found too soon. I began cleaning my room, Not just tidying, but sorting. Giving away little things, making sure my desk was clear, even folding the clothes I knew I wouldn't need again. Heavier tone. It wasn't about organization, Mum, it was about saying goodbye in a way you wouldn't notice until later. I smiled more at home, laughed at your jokes, helped you with dinner without you having to ask. I wanted you to remember me like that, not hunched over my phone, not hiding in my room with the lights off. And maybe I wanted to believe, even just for a moment, that I could be that version of myself again. But the truth was, I'd already made up my mind, and that's the part I wish I could change, even now. One night, I sat at my desk with a pen in my hand. Not my phone, not a keyboard. A real pen, like you used to use when you wrote grocery lists on scraps of paper. I started the letter the way I'd start a conversation with you in the kitchen. "Hi, Mum." And then I froze, because every word felt too heavy to put down, like the moment they'd touched the page they would become real. So instead, I wrote about the little things. How your lasagna always tasted better the next day. How I missed the sound of your slippers on the hallway floor when I was away at camp. It was easier to start with love than to start with goodbye. The second page came more easily. Maybe because I knew I'd already crossed the line, the point where the letter was no longer just an idea. I wrote about the nights you stayed up late sewing the patch on my favourite jacket, the time you drove 2 hours just to bring me the lunch I forgot, the way you'd hum under your breath when you thought I was asleep. And then I told you I was sorry. Sorry that I couldn't be stronger. Sorry that I had let the shadows grow until they covered everything. I tried to make it sound gentle, so you wouldn't hear my pain in the words, only my love. By the third page, I was no longer writing to you from the present. I was writing from all the places I'd been hiding for years. The lunch table where I sat alone, pretending to scroll through my phone so no one would see my eyes searching for a friendly face. The bathroom stall where I'd lock the door and breathe as quietly as I could until the voices outside faded. I told you I kept it all from you, because I didn't want you to fight my battles. I didn't want you to see me lose. But the truth was, I had been losing for a very long time. I think that's the part I wanted you to understand the most. Not the how, not the when, but the why. I wanted you to know that I had tried, that every morning I promised myself I'd make it through the day, that I counted tiny victories, like making it to my locker without hearing my name twisted into something cruel. But victories like that, they aren't enough to live on forever. And somewhere along the way, I stopped believing there would be bigger ones. So I wrote it down, not to make you feel guilty, but so you'd know I was tired. I wrote about the day I almost told you. It was raining, one of those heavy, endless rains that made the whole house feel smaller. You were in the kitchen, slicing apples for pie. The smell of cinnamon was everywhere. I leaned on the doorway, watching your hands work, and I almost said it, almost told you about the nights I stayed awake, about the dreams that weren't dreams at all, but ways my mind rehearsed disappearing. But you looked up at me with that tired smile, and I swallowed the words, because I didn't want to place my storm inside your quiet afternoon. There were other almosts, like the time you drove me home after practice, your hand resting on the steering wheel, and the radio playing that old song you love. I thought if I say it now, she'll hear it as music fades. Maybe it will sound softer, maybe she won't panic. But the light turned green, the road opened up ahead, and I stayed silent. Those moments stacked up over the years until my silence felt heavier than the truth. By the time I reached the last page, my handwriting was shaky, not from fear, but from knowing this was the last thing I would ever write. I told you about my favorite memory. The summer evening when we sat on the back porch, eating watermelon and laughing at the neighbor's dog chasing fireflies. I remember you said, "These are the nights you keep." And I did, Mum. I kept them. But good memories don't always save you. Sometimes they just make leaving a little harder. I folded the letter slowly, like the paper might bruise if I rushed. I put it in the envelope, and for a moment I imagined you finding it, sitting in your chair by the window, light falling across your lap, your fingers tracing the edge of the paper before you dared to open it. I wished I could be there. Not to see you cry, but to tell you one last time that I loved you. I placed the envelope on my desk. For a moment I just stared at it, that small, ordinary thing holding everything I could never say out loud. The rain outside had stopped. The sky was that pale grey after a storm, and I thought, maybe you'd see it as a sign. Maybe you'd think I left when the world was quiet. I didn't want you to find me right away. I wanted you to find the letter first, so the words could hold you before the silence did. I wrote one last line on the back of the envelope. 4 words. Please, forgive me, Mum. Not for leaving, though I know that's what will hurt the most, but for making you carry a grief I spent years trying to keep from you. I hope, one day, you'll remember me for the good things, the way I always laughed at your old jokes, the way I hugged you before school, even when I pretended not to care. I don't know if you'll read this once or 100 times. I don't know if you'll tuck it away in a drawer or keep it on the nightstand where the light falls just right. What I do know is I needed you to have these words, so you'd understand that my leaving was not about you failing me. It was about me failing to find a place where I could stay. And now, this is my last line. If there's a place after this, I hope it has your smile. I hope it has our porch and the summer night air, and the sound of the neighbor's dog chasing fireflies. I hope when you think of me, you remember I loved you, more than the hurt, more than the silence, more than the goodbye. Good night, Mom.